Okay, we're back here ready to start mounting some things. One of the things I talked about earlier was the reach of your screwdriver and having the proper equipment when you work on these larger cases. Now your standard 4.5, 5-inch screwdriver works pretty good until you get to this area right here, and then you run into a spot. And some of these places it'd be even more difficult. Now the 6-inch drive comes just barely where you need it to be, and you're still working in that. I was actually, thank goodness my daughter was looking under her bed. We had fixed her bed several months ago, and I've been missing this son of a gun. This is an 8-inch screwdriver that you can find online. You can go anywhere you want. I think I got this one at Lowe's. Anyways, what's really good about this is when you get down here, you can literally do this, and you got lots of clearance. Technically, if you had a 10-inch one, I don't think there's a case deep enough to worry about that. These level 20s are fairly deep, so when you put your motherboard in, obviously you want to have a larger screwdriver. So things to consider as you put your, and see if I can get some extra light in here. Okay, so I'm going to put this down here, and I think, let me do it from this side, and maybe that will, there you go. Now you can see the inside. So we're going to put on our screws right now, just enough so that I can make sure that radiator is going to fit in there. You might want to put in your radiator first, depending upon your setup. These level 20s are really big, and it's not as much of an issue. There is literally about 3 inches of clearance between here and your back size of your the top side of your motherboard. It's probably actually about 2.5 inches. So there's lots of room. The only thing that you would really need to worry about is on the opposite side here, right here. I'm actually touching the fan connectors. So when you put that radiator, it's going to be a little tight. Okay, let's unpackage this one. As I previously explained, there's going to be some benefits to the H151 RGB. The main thing is, the benefit is going to, does pretty well with cooling. The only issue is not a complete cover of the processor. So when you're looking at it from this direction, on the left-hand side, I'm going to pop open this, and that opens this up. So the lower screws down here, these are your small ones that are going to go for the radiator when you connect that to your case at the top. The larger, longer screws, they're going to come up through the fan, and they're going to attach into the radiator. And the center one, those are for your posts that are going to go for all the processors. They end up having the exact same thumb screws put it in. The far left, that's the threadripper. Now I'm going to pull one of these here so you can see it. These are equal in length and are quite short. Okay? There's 4 of those. Your standard Ryzen have these little, looks like key-like type. There's 2 of those, and then it goes with those corresponding brackets. And then the far side, the right side, is your back plate for your Intel. They're long. Both sides are long. Both of them are long. And then you have these ones right here, which are long and short. So depending upon which of your processors you're using, that's what will be determined which ones you're using. I think that the long for Intel is used for the LGA 1150 series and the 1366, and then the long and short one are used for the LGA 2011 and the LGA 2011 series version 3, and then also for the 2066. So in this one, you basically have two mountings. One, the fans go on the face where you're planning on putting them, and then you're going to have the mounting to the case itself from the top side. So you have to install your fans first before you put the radiator in, because you're not going to be able to get it in there with the if you have your motherboard already in for sizing things up. We're going to put the cords to the south side, which will be right around here. These right here are for your RGB, and they are the 4-pin. And then you're going to have the 4-pin for your fans, which are out of here. And then you'll have a SATA, and then this one right here is actually going to connect into your motherboard. And I'll lay this down so that it doesn't get thermal grease all over everywhere. Okay, so now we have our radiator right where we want it to be at, and I'm going to borrow this on this side so I can see where my holes are going to line up. Hopefully that's not creating too much of an issue for you guys so you can see. We've installed the fans onto the radiator and now mounted to the level 20. The level 20 allows you to pop the radiator off so you can get in between, which is really nice because we've got a lot of cords. I've pre-ran the lines for the CPU and also on the CPU monitor or the CPU connectors, so they're in there, because once this gets on, it's going to be really difficult to adjust any of the wiring in there. And before I set this, what I'm going to do is actually put the CPU on so that once it's in place, I'm not going to run into an issue with it sliding all around on the motherboard. Now we're going to have Corsair facing in this direction, so we're going to want the larger one to go on the bottom like this, and it'll slip in on that side. Okay, and then the shorter goes to the top, and we'll just clip that one in. So as we put it in, it'll look just like this. But you don't want that thermal grease to be on the edge by the nuts, except you can on the lower portion here. So you can go extend out a little bit further out than what they would normally do. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take a swipe going basically from the edge of the screws, and I'm going to run a straight line down to the screw. And that should give me enough space. Now I know they can have a little bit here underneath that screw, and then we're going to go again from here and straight down to this screw, and then we'll run across here, and then I'm going to do just like you would with the Wrath. I'm going to do the X, and then put a little in between each one of these, fill in the gap. So Linus does this a few times, and I've seen level 1 when they're building, sometimes they'll do that as well. Essentially this is just a test run to see whether or not we got these on right. Okay, so now we've got it the thermal paste spread out just a little bit. You can see we have as much of this side free as possible so we don't have it on the edge. We're just going to clean out just a little bit more. Okay, now we'll put it back on, and then hopefully that is all that it takes. So our cables are running through. I had these initially going underneath the fan and they would not work properly. They were interfering with the fan, so I had to move these and run them basically running with the fans and then out to another side. This power cord I've plugged in. I've modified the case, filed down the edges. I basically clipped. The good thing about it is these little spaces right here, if you clip here and then file them down, and then you can paint them or put some rubber adhesive. What I ended up doing is just using, I filed them down and I used the soft side of a Velcro and then strapped them up on both sides. So, and then did some cable management and locked them in so that the back side's here. Here. So if you run into an issue where you've got multiple Thermaltake 9 pins that are going on and you have that all connected into your motherboard and you're using one of those hubs from Thermaltake, each one of the sides has 3 9-pin ports and they have a separate port. That separate port actually has fan speed or fan connector. Now you would think that you just need one of those connected in, but as it turns out, each one of those requires one of these. The connector that goes into the port and then the one that goes into a fan. Now this motherboard comes equipped with 2 chassis fans. It comes equipped with your pump, and it also comes with an external fan and a few others. But the problem is that there's not enough fans. Well, Thermaltake figured this one out because it equips the buyer, if you get a brand new board or if you get a board that has all the components, you have another fan port essentially here that comes with brackets, gets the Molex connector, you put it on the back side, and then you run your lines to this. So you effectively get almost 3 other ports out of this, maybe 4 that you can get out of this. And then 2 of them have sensors, actually 3 of them have sensors on them. So that's how you resolve the issue, because the motherboard doesn't have enough. And when you're running as many fans as I am, because of the workstation nature of this build, that's what you're going to need to know. So if you run into a spot where you got multiple fans that are running faster than they should be, but they're all connected into separate 9-pin ports on the Thermaltake hub, that's why. And again, the hub is a roll, it's about 4 inches by 4 inches. It has 3 ports on one side, 3 on the top, and 3 on the other side, and the 2 bottom ones are your RGB connector and then also the power. We're back at it. The fan, auxiliary fan, is something that comes with the ASUS Zenith. Really difficult to mount it inside of the back side of the level 20 because the instructions are that you would look for your 5.5 or 5 1/4 bay, which is traditionally your CD-ROMs. This one obviously doesn't come, the level 20 does not come with CD-ROMs because it's got the glass in the front. So a way to get around that, what you need to do is grab a 3.5 floppy cover that you would normally have inside of your old cases, if you can find one. Maybe you can get them online. Look for a nice, decent colored one. There are the tabs on the side. Pop those tabs off, and then you're going to find a screw that is going to fit inside of this area right up here. It's a perfect spot. It looks like it would normally have some type of that may be the bays for, I know these rails right here are for your standard bays that you would use for your hard drives. Nonetheless, there's one here, and one on the bottom. Nope, there's only the two. There's one here and there's one up here. And they're a single hole, and they take a standard threaded case screw. You're looking for the 1/2" screw. And what you're going to do is you're going to pop in, drill a hole in the center of this, and then you're just going to simply screw here, and it'll hold. Now what I've done is I've mounted this just like this. And so when I mount this on here, this screw will actually avoid touching your motherboard, or the motherboard for the external fans. So simply just screw in here, just like that, and there's going to be bend in it, which is good because you want it to bend just a little bit so that inside, you don't want to crack it, but you want to give enough bend inside of it that it holds it in place and doesn't fracture it, but it should give enough space so that your back rests here and doesn't actually touch that screw, which is what I've got right now. Then we'll use the same screws that came with this. Of course, right when you're trying to show how creative you are, you can't get the darn things to work like they're supposed to. Alright, so pop it through here onto the bracket. Screw in just enough tight to hold it. Grab your second one. Now I've clipped the size of these. These are actually about 1/8 of an inch bigger, the screws that come with this bracket, because I didn't want to have any negative play when I'm screwing in to the back plate. We have the fans running now. They are picked up by our separate port, and so that's good. They have the correct RGB setting. Again, we have our 12 slots that are going to be used for the RAID, likely to be RAID 10 or 5. And then this right here is a new fan system that's been installed, and you'll see in the previous video I did show you that you can create these brackets, which are just aluminum brackets, and put a double fan inside, and these are 140, so I mean they're as big as a man's hand. They're huge. That should draft enough. You're gonna have the push with the front, but you're gonna have enough draft. The really good thing about this particular build is, and I think in level 1 they talked about, you know, when you can actually reverse the airflow if you have a large amount of heat that's being generated on one side of the case, so it doesn't cross over and go back into your motherboard. Now, you really don't need to worry about that too much, except for your GPU if you have liquid cooling going on, because obviously most of the heat transfer is done here and up top under your radiator. System's got to find them. It's done that in the past where I have multiple fans, and it's taken a while for Thermaltake to find these fans. Sometimes I have to actually disconnect them and put them back on. But I'm getting good airflow from here. It's not creating a lot of... Ooh, damn, don't do that! And it's quiet. You know, we finally got some cool air coming. I mean, it's nice. There we go. Okay. So if at first you don't succeed, try trying again. So now we've got them all running, and so it looks pretty darn amazing. I'm gonna flip the lights off so you can see what it looks like. And from a side angle, and then from a top angle, all RAM is installed now. You can tell that the RAM that I had suggested, if you go to Amazon, you'll see a question about whether or not this can work on a ASUS ROG X39 motherboard. $399, it does. We're also running the 10 gig card inside of this machine because this will be the workstation, and we don't have any of the separate drives in for the RAID, but we do have everything wired for it, and that'll be taken care of. Right now I'm downloading from the dual Xeon, putting all of that data onto a separate hard drive, external, and then I'll port it over to this one. I'm going to be using the 10 disks that are inside of that are SATA, and then I'll be repopulating that with SAS drives, because that ASUS motherboard comes with a SAS extension card. I'm looking forward to this. We have another build coming up real soon with a Thermaltake case. We're going to be putting in that 44, I can't remember which Intel motherboard we're putting in. It's the X87 ECM that we'll be putting in, and it should be pretty exciting. It's a full ATX. All right, we'll see you then.